Election Night. A documentary on the fateful evening of November 8th, when the United States of America elected their 45th president, Donald J. Trump. One of the few nights that almost anyone can say, "I remember where I was when," and they'll look forlornly into the distance as if searching for Hillary's success. The documentary itself is set in a London pub, in which a crowd of Americans and Britons alike have gathered to watch the election progress, and as Trump wins more and more states, unrest arises. Election Night is an observational documentary produced and filmed by Ryan Scafuro. Observational documentaries are detached from form and are more reflective of how reality is constructed. In comparison to expository documentaries, which are highly informational and often present a particular point of view, observational documentaries exist to simply watch and, of course, observe the world around us, presenting an unbiased account of records and events and moments. Election Night is most recognizably an observational documentary due to Scafuro's non-intervention and how he is simply filming the people around him and the atmosphere of the pub. Acting like a fly on the wall allows observational documentary producers to film and record what is happening without having a direct input to the narrative of the documentary and without direct interviewing. While there are some pseudo-interviews that are very informal and mostly provoked by the presence of the camera rather than the direct questioning of the filmmaker. Seen here, anyone speaking on camera is presented as if they're simply engaged in a conversation, and this is an adaptation of the masked interview method where filmmakers are unseen and interviewees speak to each other. Observational documentaries are heavily technology-enabled, and Election Night is no exception. Due to the incredibly crowded and loud bar, the use of small cameras and advanced sound equipment is what really allows the documentary to flourish. Recording in real time with a handheld camera and a minimum occupation of space, Scafuro is able to collect an ample amount of film without intruding in the bar. It's simply life as it is. One element of observational mode that Election Night seems sometimes at odds with is the objective and observant method rather than subjective motive. It can be argued that the opinions expressed in the documentary are heavily Democrat, and there's really only two pubgoers who express wishes for Trump's victory, and one is escorted out by his mate before too much of a ruckus can occur. Despite this seeming subjectivity in opinion, none of this is expressed directly by the filmmaker and is just an element of people having opinions on a controversial issue. Scafuro tries to get as many opinions and ideas as possible on screen and refuses to silence any element of the night, including the short brawl that arises several drinks in. One of the most important aspects of a documentary is what it's talking about, or the content. The content presented in Election Night is quite unique. Rather than advancing a story or giving the audience information about a chosen topic, the majority of the content provided in the documentary is the personal opinions and reflections of everyday people watching the news together. Although titled Election Night, the content is less about political motivations and discourse of the run for office, but more about the social interaction of the people in the pub. This context greatly rewards Scafuro's choice of observational mode, and the casual nature of the conversation and setting is reflected well in this mode. Observational documentaries are more informal than expository, and rely on natural sound and lighting elements to further develop that fly-on-the-wall feeling. Ideally, the audience should feel that they're watching an event unfold, rather than being taken on a journey pre-described by the filmmaker. Ryan Scafuro is an independent filmmaker with over 15 years of international experience and a variety of work including documentaries, comedy shows, and films. Election Night was described by Scafuro to be a snapshot of one place, one evening, and the participants of a shared experience, embodying his spontaneous and passively observant style. In terms of cinematography, Scafuro edits his films to be a quick change from shot to shot. In Election Night, he begins by showing an external shot of the bar, the doorman, and straight into the sprawling and loud atmosphere of intoxication. There isn't a single shot within the whole piece that exceeds 5 seconds in length, excepting maybe 1 or 2 lines of dialogue. Scafuro's shot style is what builds this need for quick shots. Bouncing from one group to the next, from behind the bar and around the pub, the shots and angles achieved in Election Night serve to make the audience feel a passive participant within the evening. Between snippets of conversation, the camera focuses on the television, sometimes capturing the whole screen and sometimes focusing on the most minute details in the wrinkles of Donald Trump's face. As far as developing the narrative, Scafuro's style is to let the characters tell the story and progress the documentary. Rather than acting as a guiding voice throughout election night, the evening is developed by the reactions and voices of the people interviewed. The conversations are edited smoothly together to create a flow of dialogue and advance the night. Some recurring voices, such as the bartender and the political know-it-all, speak several times throughout the night, providing context and a sense of time's passage. As is typical to observational documentaries, only natural sound and lighting are used throughout the film until the fateful moment when Trump's victory begins to become assured. At this point of the evening, Scafuro adds somber and distressing music as the shots become more erratic, and these two elements reflect the emotionally charged atmosphere of the pub. Election night was a night where most people can tell you where they were. Scafuro's film style made the audience feel a part of the bristling British pub and used observational mode to present a true feeling of participation. The POV camera style, the wide variety of patrons, and using people rather than a narrator to develop the evening, all elements of observational documentary. I remember where I was on election night. I was in the Lexington.